Happy Sunday. It's my favorite day. And a lot of you guys have told me it is yours too on the channel because today is the day we do our literary archaeology show. And we delve into old literature, old writings to try to remember who we are and what our nature is. Funnily enough, other channels are picking up the idea of fairy tales being crucial to our culture, including the podcast of the Lotus Eaters. They had a segment on there called Fairy Tales Are Based, and that blew me away. Honey Badger's Radio also delved into, I believe, Snow White. I think Disney going so woke has led people to say, hey, wait a second. What were these fairy tales originally? And they are based. So that's what we enjoy here on Sundays. Welcome back to Far From Eden. Last week's fairy tale threw me for a loop. I completely missed it because it started out, it was the clever farmer's daughter. And started out, and I was like, oh, okay. Where are they going with this? Really valuing intelligence in a woman. And it really wasn't about that at all. And you guys told me in the chat, very sweetly, nobody criticized. We have the nicest chat. We have the most supportive chat. We just have the best. And I think, who was it last night? Was it Yin Sound? I'm sorry if it was the wrong person, but one of you said, yeah, if somebody's missing who's usually here, we notice and we worry. And there's one of us that has not been here for several shows. And I'm just, every chat, I'm like, is that him? Is he here? Is he here anyway? AA Strumming, come back. We're all worried about you. Anyway, you guys let me know in the chat, hey, the moral of the story was don't trust a woman. And I missed it. And if you're new here, you're probably thinking, of course you missed it. You're a woman. No, I swear, I usually catch these things. I do. But I missed it on that one. I think the woman being very intelligent and not being so valued threw me off. That was the smoke and mirrors, right? I fell for it. The things I'm always warning you guys about, I fell for it. So just because you're smart doesn't mean you're going to use it for good, right? So last week, because it was Father's Day, we skipped over the one that we were actually on in the book. Look how far through we are. So the one we had to skip over was called The Raven. So no idea what it's about. We're going to find out together, and hopefully I don't get tricked this time. See what I did there? I externalized blame. I blamed the fairy tale for tricking me rather than me saying, yeah, I didn't get it. That's how our minds work. I am telling you, I know what I'm talking about. I'm totally honest with you about how women's brains work. And it doesn't help that we're raised and that's encouraged as we're being raised. That's why we need strong fathers to be like, no. And then husbands, but that's a whole other topic. Tune into the other shows if you want to hear me rant about that. Anyway, all right. Eyes are tired today, so I can't power through like I like to because I'm apparently too vain to like my glasses. Anyway, The Raven. Once upon a time, there was a queen who had a daughter. And she was so little that she had to be carried in her mother's arms. One day, the child became restless, and no matter what the mother said, she wouldn't keep quiet. The mother became impatient, and as she This is the train. And as she looked at the ravens flying around outside the castle, she opened the window and said, I wish you were a raven and would fly away. Then I'd have my peace and quiet. Now, just going to take a small break and say that you guys know how women often say, my kids are my life and my kids are first and everything. And then you see them screaming at them. You see them put a tablet in their face. You see a lot of things. You see them put them in daycare, all those sorts of things, and be lax on, discipline because they want to be friends with them. It's really about sort of virtue signaling and wanting to be the good guy. So that's what that reminded me of. I don't know how often they actually do put their children first. I think that it very much helps when you actually respect the father of the children, because then the way that you treat the children is honoring him. The way you raise the children is honoring him. I know I belong in the at least 1800s. So, but that's why we do this, is to remember like how it's supposed to be. And once again, we're being warned with this fairy tale of a nasty queen. How many of you in the chat are saying, I smell a witch? So I wish you were a raven and would fly away. Then I'd have my peace and quiet. No sooner had she said those words than the child was changed into a raven and flew from her arm out through the window. The bird flew far away, and nobody could follow her. She headed for a dark forest where she stayed for a long time. Sometime later, a man was making his way through this forest when he heard the raven calling. He went toward the voice, and as he came closer, the raven said, I am a king's daughter by birth and have been cursed by a spell. However, you can set me free. How can I do this? He asked. Go into the house over there, she said. There's an old woman sitting inside. She'll offer you something to eat and drink and tell you to enjoy the meal, but you're not to touch a thing. You're not to drink, because if you drink anything, you'll fall asleep and won't be able to release me. This is so good. Won't be able to release me from the spell. Won't be able to release me from the spell. In the garden behind the house, there's a big pile of tan bark. You're to stand on it and wait for me. I shall come 3 days in a row at 2:00 in the afternoon with a carriage. But if you aren't awake, I won't be set free. Okay. The man said he'd do everything, but the raven said, oh, I can already tell you won't set me free. You'll take something from the old woman. Let's just point out that this is a guy walking through the forest, and a raven's talking to him saying, I'm the king, I am a king's daughter, etc. Immediately, of course, he says, I'm going to rescue you. Honestly, I think whoever the raven said they were, he would rescue them, because that's what men do. That's what men do. I'm thinking of the huntsman in Little Red Riding Hood. And he came in and got rid of that wolf. He knew that wolf had been a problem. This is what men do. This is why Christendom became the best society that the world has ever known. Because of men like that, because of men like you. Again, the man promised her he wouldn't touch the food or the drink. However, once he was inside the house, the old woman went over to him and said, "How worn out you are. Come and refresh yourself. Have something to eat and drink." "No," said the man, "I don't want to eat and drink." But she wouldn't leave him in peace and kept saying, "Well, if you don't want to eat, just take a sip from the glass. One little sip won't hurt." Finally, he let himself be persuaded and drank. Don't let a woman persuade you. You have set your boundary and said no. Do not bend. Adam took the apple in the garden. Toward 2 in the afternoon, he went outside into the garden and climbed onto the pile of tan bark to wait for the raven. As he stood there, he suddenly felt so tired that he couldn't help himself and had to lie down and rest a little. He didn't want to fall asleep, but no sooner had he stretched himself out that his eyes closed by themselves and he fell asleep. He slept so soundly that nothing in the world could have wakened him. At 2 o'clock, the raven came driving up in a carriage with 4 white horses. But she was already in full mourning and said, "I already know he's asleep." When she drove into the garden, he was indeed fast asleep. She climbed out of the carriage, went over to him, and shook him and called him, but he didn't wake up. Didn't wake up. What is this symbolizing, do you guys think? It's also interesting that it was 3 days. There's always, these numbers that are harken back to the Bible, which is what the fairy tales do. They reinforce all of the things that we do learn in the Bible. You guys are constantly putting scripture in the chat that things in these stories remind you of lessons. Delilah, Bathsheba. That's what you guys were saying last week. So he didn't wake up. She continued to cry out until he finally awoke from his sleep. And she said, "I see that you can't set me free, but I shall come again tomorrow. I'll be driving in the carriage drawn by 4 brown horses. You are not to take anything at all from the old woman, neither food nor drink." He replied, "I won't, certainly not." However, she said, "I know already that you'll take something." At noon the next day, the old woman came to him again and asked him why he wasn't eating and drinking. And he replied, "I don't want anything to eat or drink." However, she placed the food and drink in front of him so that he could smell everything. And she convinced him to drink once more. Don't let them seduce you. She's seducing him with food. And he knew she would try, and he still fell for it. This is a giant weakness that men have. And society makes it worse because they want the women to lead. So they'll lead you right to the state. Toward 2 o'clock, he went into the garden and climbed onto the pile of tan bark to wait for the raven. Then he felt so tired that his limbs could no longer support him. Since he couldn't help himself, he lay down to sleep a little. When the raven drove up in her carriage drawn by 4 brown stallions, she was in full mourning again and said, "I know he's already sleeping." When she went over to him, he lay fast asleep and couldn't be wakened. She climbed out of the carriage, shook him, and tried to wake him. It was more difficult than the day before until he finally awoke. I certainly see, said the raven, that you can't free me. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock I shall come once more, but it will be the last time. My horses will be black, and I shall be dressed all in black. You are not to take anything from the old woman, nothing to eat or drink. Certainly not, he said. Oh, I know for sure that you'll take something, she replied. The next day, the old woman asked him what the matter was and why he wasn't eating or drinking. I don't want to eat or drink, he replied. In spite of this, she said, he should taste how good all the food was just one time. Do you see how the persuasion and seduction gets stronger each time? The first time it's just there and it looks good. Second time he can smell it. Now it's even more persuasive. She's talking about how it tastes. It's more detailed. Women know how to entice men. It's like it's just inside of us. We just know. And the fact that most men don't know this and then have to learn it the hard way is bad. If you had been taught fairy tales when you were younger, you would know it. That's what a lot of the warnings are in this book. There's a whole lot of witches and evil stepmothers and evil mother-in-laws. There really are. I mean, there's evil elves and this, that, and the other, and there's men who don't do the right thing, don't step up, etc. But it calls out women a lot. A lot. Shocking. I mean, I'm not shocked anymore, but when we started, I was like, oh, whoa. I would have warned you guys big time. So okay, wait. In spite of this, she said he should taste how good all the food was just one time. Otherwise, he would die from hunger. So he let himself be persuaded and drank something again. When the time came, he went outside into the garden and climbed onto the pile of tan bark to wait for the princess. But he became so tired that he couldn't keep standing and lay down and slept like a log. At 2 o'clock, the raven came, and her carriage was drawn by 4 black horses. The carriage and everything else were also black, and she was already in full mourning. I know he's asleep, she said, and he won't be able to set me free. When she went over to him, he was lying there sound asleep. She shook him and called him, but she couldn't wake him up. So she put a loaf of bread beside him. No matter how much he took from the bread, it would always replenish itself. She gave him a loaf of bread, and no matter how much he took from it, it kept replenishing itself. That's interesting. Loaves of bread kept replenishing themselves. Once again, we've got something that sounds an awful lot like the Bible, the fishes and the loaves. Then she placed a piece of meat next to him. No matter how much he took from the meat, it would always replenish itself. The third thing she placed next to him was a bottle of wine. No matter how much wine he drank, it would always replenish itself. After that, she drew a golden ring from her finger and placed it on his finger. Her name was engraved on it. Finally, she left him a letter on the ground in which she explained that the things she had given him would never run out. And she concluded her letter by saying, I clearly see that you can't set me free in a place like this. But if you still want to save me, then come to the Golden Castle at Mount Stromberg. You can do it. I know that for sure. And after she had given him all those things, she climbed back into her carriage and drove off to the golden castle of Mount Stromberg. When the man woke and saw that he had slept, he was terribly sad and said, "I'm sure she's been here, and I haven't set her free." Then he noticed the things lying beside him, and he read the letter that explained everything that had happened. So he stood up and set out for the golden castle of Mount Stromberg, even though he didn't know where it was. After he had wandered about the world, for a long time, he finally came to a dark forest and continued wandering for 14 days and realized he couldn't find his way out. When it turned evening, he was so tired that he lay down beneath a bush and fell asleep. The next day, he moved on, and in the evening, as he was about to lie down beneath another bush, when he heard such a moaning and groaning that he was unable to sleep. When the hour came for people to light their lamps, he saw a light glimmering in the distance, got up, and went toward it. Shortly after, he came to a house that appeared to be very small. A big giant was standing in front of it. Isn't this where the fairy tale goes? It always happens about 3/4 of the way through. You're like, and then a giant appears? Okay. All right. We're with it. Okay. Okay. A giant was standing in front of it. Whether you go inside or stay here, he thought to himself, the giant will put an end to your life. So you might as well do it. Okay. So he stepped toward the door, and when the giant saw him, he said, "It's good that you've come. I haven't had a thing to eat for a long time, so I'm going to gobble you up for supper." "Let things be," said the man. "If you want something to eat, I've got something with me." "If that's true," said the giant, "you can rest easy. I wanted to eat you only because I had nothing else." They both went inside and sat down at the dinner table. And the man took out the bread, wine, and meat that never ran out, and they ate until they were full. After supper, the man asked him, "Can you tell me where to find the golden castle of Mount Stromberg?" The giant said, "I'll look it up on my map. It shows all the cities, villages, and houses." He took out a map that he kept in the room and looked for the castle, but it wasn't on it. "Don't worry," he said. I've got even larger maps in the closet upstairs. We can look for it on them." Well, they just became friends, even though, the giant was about to gobble him up. They became friends. Interesting. Women don't really understand the way men relate to each other. We really don't. Just thought of that as I'm reading this about the giant and the man. I'm not saying that that's always how it's going to be, but also we really don't relate. And that's why, the whole boys will be boys, and you can't let young boys like be rough and tumble around with each other. And we need that. We need boys to be able to do that. And young men need to interact with each other in a certain way. But female teachers and mothers, and even it's drifted into modern psychology, stopping that. But here's the giant who was going to be quite violent, and the man, and they've made an agreement. They've made a deal, right? The man fed the giant. Now the giant's helping him, and it's very interesting to me. But there are just some things about men that women can never really fully understand, and the other way around. But we still need warnings. We still need warnings. So he's got a larger map. They looked at the maps, but couldn't find the castle. Now the man wanted to move on, but the giant begged him to stay for a few more days until his brother returned. He had gone out to fetch some food. He also had good maps. They could try again with his maps and find the castle for sure. So the man waited until the brother came back. Well, the brother said he didn't know for certain, but he believed the castle of Stromberg was on his map. Then 3 of them ate once again until they were quite full. Afterward, the second giant went to his room and said, "Now I'll take a look at my map." The castle wasn't on it. Then he said he had another map upstairs in a room full of maps. It had to be on one of them. When he brought the maps downstairs, they began searching again, and finally they found the castle of Stromberg. However, it was thousands of miles away. "How will I ever get there?" asked the man. "I've got 2 hours to spare," said the giant. "I'll carry you as far as I can, but then I must return home and nurse our child." What? What? Okay. I'm sorry. Just okay. I mean, is it a man? They said 3 men, didn't they? Okay. Welcome to fairy tales. They throw whatever in there to get the story moving the direction they want it to go. They needed a reason for the giant to go home, so I guess that's as good as any. So he carried the man until he carried the man until he was about 100 hours walk away from the castle and said, "You can go the rest of the way by yourself." "Yes, indeed," said the man. "I can certainly do that." As they were about to separate, the man said, "Let's first eat one more time until we're full." After they did that, the giant took his leave and went home, while the man went on day and night until he finally came to the golden castle of Mount Stromberg. Bear in mind that as this man is going to rescue this princess turned into a raven, she was turned into that by an evil spell. So he's not just going to rescue her, he's going to fight evil because spells are evil. And that's he'd probably do it even if it wasn't a princess. I just think that he would. Okay. Lose my spot. The giant took his leave. Finally came to the golden castle of Mount Stromberg. But the castle was up on a glass mountain, and he saw the enchanted maiden driving around the castle. He wanted to climb up to her, but he continually slipped on the glass and became very distressed and said to himself, "It's best if I build a little hut for myself. I've got plenty to eat and drink." So he built a hut for himself and stayed there for Stayed there for 1 solid year. Wow. And watched the princess every day drive around on top of the mountain, but he couldn't climb up to her. One day he saw 3 giants fighting with each other and called out to them, "God be with you." They stopped fighting, listened to see where the cry came from, and then resumed fighting. When they couldn't see anyone, it was dangerous just to be near them. Wait a minute. Let me read that again. That didn't sound right. They stopped fighting, listened to see where the cry came from, and then resumed fighting when they couldn't see anyone. It was dangerous just to be near them. But again, the man called out, God be with you. It was dangerous for the man to let them know where he was, but he still cried out, God be with you. Again, they stopped, looked around, and resumed their fighting when they couldn't see anyone. Finally, the man called out for a third time, God be with you. And this time, he thought to himself, we better go see what these three are up to. So he went out to them and asked them why they were fighting. One of them said he had found a stick and that whenever he struck a door with it, the door would spring open. The second said he had found a clock and that whenever he hung it over his shoulders, he would be invisible. The third said he had caught a horse that one could ride it anywhere. The third said he had caught a horse and that one could ride it anywhere, even up the glass mountain. Then one man said, I'll make an exchange with you. Then the man said, I'll make an exchange with you. I'll take those three things. And to be honest, I don't have any money, but I do have other things that are worth more than money. First, however, I must test your things to see whether you've told me the truth. This reminds me of a previous fairy tale when the giants had some things. They let him sit on the horse with the cloak over his shoulders and handed him the stick. I'm not so bright. As soon as he had all three objects, they could no longer see him. So he gave them all a good beating and cried out, Now, are you satisfied? Okay, you guys are going to have to help me with that one. Okay. The man rode up the glass mountain, and when he got to the top, he found the castle door was closed. So he struck the gate with the stick, and it immediately sprang open. He entered and went up the stairs until he came to a hall. There sat the princess, and she had a goblet filled with wine in front of her. However, she couldn't see him because he was wearing the cloak. Did I say clock before? What in the actual heck? I'm so sorry, you guys. Oh my gosh, I'm so ditzy. The light reflects and then in my glasses and it's, yeah, I'm making an excuse. Yeah, it's a cloak, not a clock. Yeah, clock didn't make any sense. Oh, you guys, thank you for putting up with my silliness sometimes. Okay. Okay, the cloak, right? The cloak of invisibility. All right. He's wearing the cloak. When he went over to her, he pulled on the ring that she had given him. He pulled off the ring. Oh my gosh. He pulled off the ring that she had given him and threw it into the goblet so that it rang out. That's my ring, she exclaimed. Well then, the man who's going to set me free must be here somewhere. She had her servants search all over the castle, but they couldn't find him. Indeed, he had gone outside, mounted the horse, and thrown off the cloak. When they finally saw him out by the gate, they screamed for joy. So he dismounted and took the princess in his arms. She kissed him and said, Now you've finally set me free. Soon thereafter, they held the wedding and lived happily ever after. That's one thing I want to say about fairy tales. And I was actually thinking about this earlier. Whenever, the princess or the woman gets the guy in the end. They never talk about what the guy gets, right? Like in the Disney fairy tales, Cinderella, Snow White, and Sleeping Beauty, they sort of ride off with the prince. And it's sort of like, oh, easy peasy, soft life for her. What's in it for him? Why does he do all the rescuing and she gets all the everything? In this story, they both contributed. She helped him along the way. And because think about it, in the other stories, did the princess help anybody rescue her? No. Snow White didn't help the dwarves. Sleeping Beauty didn't help the prince defeat Maleficent. And Cinderella, well, she just got rescued. She didn't really do anything. She actually made it harder, right? Because she left the shoe and she didn't say anything. So the men did all the work and, gave everything. But in this story, the princess is helping him to rescue her. So in that way, she's contributing, but also he was a huntsman, something like that, right? A man in the forest. And he's going to now be a prince and I guess later a king, right? That's the opposite of those Disney tales where the woman cashes out. Imagine this as a Disney story. I don't think they could do it because they both rescue each other. Tell me what you guys think. Tell me what you guys got from this story. What biblical references you picked up. I always enjoy these. They feed my soul, and I love sharing them with you. Obviously, this is a long one, so we only have time for the one. But yeah, women used to be expected to contribute. And you see the difference between the evil mom and the evil old woman in the house, which I'm sure they're both witches. So, and then the princess. They really show the difference between women in fairy tales. And it's a warning. It's a warning. But you guys don't get warned anymore. You just get thrown to the wolves, thrown to the witches. Sorry. It's not funny. Anyway, you guys, keep feeding your souls, not just on Fairy Tale Day, but on all the days. And sometimes it's hard, I know, but you have to keep doing it. I know I do too. I do too. I don't deal with what you deal with, but I deal with multiple sclerosis. So it has to be intentional. Find the joy and find the purpose. And you guys have helped me do that. You really have. So, seems weird to ask you to like the video after saying that, but please like the video. The fairy tales don't get as much traction, but I think it's really important for people to know about this treasure that has been buried. So don't forget to protect your peace. I love you guys, and I'll see you on the next one. Okay, bye.